cannot be done because of the definition of the God that people are trying to prove. It's been for that reason that some Christian theologians have experimented with an interesting idea that God is finite, not infinite. That's very interesting. That solves a lot of these problems, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, some Christians claim that Jesus is God. So, did ever Jesus said in the Bible that I am God and worship me? And the other thing I'd like to ask is, there's so many interpretations of what Jesus said. Is that because nobody wrote it down when he said it, or it's because it's written so after a long time?
Well, maybe a little of both. I don't know, but there's not a whole lot that is reported that he said anyway. I mean, there was one newspaper man in my city, in Toronto. He said if you took all the words of Jesus, you could print them on the front page of the newspaper. There's not really that many words to go on that had been handed down. But that was the point that I touched on there, which I was trying to explain to the Muslims sometimes, to take it easy. When I travel around, it very often happens that somebody meets me at the airport, and somebody I've never met before, and he picks up the bag, and we head out to the car, and before we get to the car, before we're out of the parking lot, he says, does it say somewhere in the Bible that Jesus said he was God? And the answer is, well, yes and no. It depends on, are you looking for precise words, or are you looking to find out what did he mean when he said this thing? That the Muslim has fallen into what is really an unfair kind of a reply. If the Christian says, look here, Jesus says, I am the Son of God. And the Muslim says, oh, it must be a lie, somebody wrote that there. When he may well have said that, but now let's see, who was he talking to and what were they talking about when he said that? And who says that Son should have a capital S there, and so on. Those are ideas of some of the people who have reproduced these things. But the episode I mentioned in particular is when the Jews said to Jesus, we are sons of God. And his reply was, no, you're sons of the devil. I'm the Son of God. See, when they said we're sons of God, they didn't mean some kind of a claim to divinity. And when he said you're sons of the devil, he didn't literally mean your grandmother slept with the devil, I don't think. But why is it that he must literally mean when he says, I'm the Son of God? Only when I say Son of God, I mean Son of God. Capital S, Son of God. Maybe did, maybe didn't, but it's unfair to insist that what he meant was this thing and not something like what the Jews meant when they were having this discussion. As to whether or not people worshipped him, that's another one of these things that it's a trick of language that the Quran accuses some people of doing. Worship used to mean, in English, what was worthy, worthyship. In Canada, we still call the mayor of a city your worship. Doesn't mean I think he's God, but it's just how you talk. And it used to be in English that if you stood up when somebody came into the room, they say you worshipped him. And it says in the Bible that a man came to Jesus one day and he worshipped him. If you look literally in the Greek, the word there, literally in Greek, means he blew him a kiss. Now people have done that to me. I don't like it, but I didn't think that they were worshipping me like I was God. You see? It's just what was said. And what I'm getting at here is that, I believe it's the second chapter of Daniel, it says that Nebuchadnezzar came to Daniel and he worshipped him in the King James Bible. And you point to that and say, doesn't worship here sound more like just kind of a salute? Or he nodded his head toward him, or shook his hand, or did something like that? So that in most modern English translations, they've changed that to something else. But they have left alone the verse that says a man came to Jesus and he worshipped him. Because today, at least in many English-speaking countries, worship has a different flavor than it had long ago. Today it seems to carry a lot of baggage that it didn't used to have. As I say, it still doesn't in many British areas. You won't find that argument cited by a Canadian generally. Will not point to the place and say, what about when a man worshipped Jesus? You tell you, that's kind of silly. Even a little town of 500 people we call the mayor your worship. It's just a way of talking. Yeah.
Can I do it again? Just for the sake of what the Christian Scriptures say. It's your day, and I'm not meaning to take it. You've done a good job. But can I do it with Thomas and read that situation out of him?
I can probably quote it for you without reading it, but you're talking about my Lord and my God.
Yeah.
See, that's the same kind of, I think everybody knows the passage. Thomas.
It's how Jesus responded that I'm interested in.
How did he respond? Like this? You got it, Thomas, right on the nose.
Thomas, all right. Then Jesus said to Thomas, reach here your finger and look at my hands. He's asking him to put his finger into the hole in his hand. And behold my hands. And put your hand and put it into my side. And don't be faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said to him, my Lord and my God. And Jesus' response is, Jesus says unto him, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. So Jesus, I think, is backing up what Thomas says. He has him put his hand in the hole in his side. And when Thomas calls him my Lord and my God, he blesses Thomas for having seen and believed. He doesn't say, far be it from God that he should have a son.
Well, the point is that there's at least 3 ways that I know of that Thomas's words can be taken. I don't use it as a matter of course, but it has happened to me that I've been surprised and I've said, my God. And the man in front of me said, yes, isn't it terrible? Such and such a thing is true. He didn't say, no, wait, what do you mean? I'm not God. It may have been an expletive. He may have said, my Lord, my God. And what Jesus was then talking about was, you, Thomas, who didn't think I was raised up. Now you've seen and you believe I'm raised up, so congratulations. Other people won't get to see the evidence, but they will believe. It's not necessarily an endorsement of some theological statement by Thomas. In any case, even if Thomas is addressing him, my Lord, my God, that has precedent in Scripture. The Muslim may not like it, but the precedent is there in the Bible of other people who were addressed as God without being God. When Moses spoke to the angel in the burning bush, he called the angel God. And Stephen explained later that it wasn't actually God, it was God's angel. But when God sends an angel and you speak to him, you might call him God. Moses was told, I'm sending you as God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. And in fact, the word as is added in italics in most English translations. It isn't there in the Hebrew. God says to Moses, I'm sending you to Pharaoh. You will be God, as far as Pharaoh is concerned. So there's this and other cases. The precedent is there for a human being or some other being to be addressed as God without being God. Paul talked about Satan as being the God of the world. So it's largely a question maybe of God capital G or small g. Or I say there's various ways of looking at it, but I'm not arguing that your understanding of it is wrong so much as trying to point out the case is not closed by that. Other things are possible. It is unambiguous. I'm afraid that in a session like this, it maybe sounds like I'm trying to tell some people that they're wrong. My intention is more to say, if you think you have proved something, think again, find something unambiguous or all-inclusive and wrap it up. And if you can do that, fine, then I will say, yes, you're right. But for now, what passes as proof is largely what is sometimes called synthetic reasoning, and that's not a criticism. Synthetic reasoning is when you take a lot of things and you form what seems to be a sensible conclusion, but it is not an inevitable conclusion. That's analytic reasoning. Synthetic reasoning is when you say that it's cloudy and the wind is blowing and the weatherman said rain, it's going to rain. That's synthetic reasoning. You haven't proved it's going to rain. Analytic reasoning is where you have said A and B make C, there's no other possibility. That's analytic reasoning. These kinds of things are sold, in my opinion, as synthetic reasoning. I've never seen it sold any other way. That it's very coherent, but it's not an inevitable conclusion that one arrives at. Other conclusions are possible based on the same input. I want to give somebody a turn that hasn't spoken. Did I ask you before?
Sir, would you explain in other words, we talk about the Christian